Hi, channel Frederator. I'm hoping y'all can do 107 facts about the Legend of Korra, the greatest animation of all time.
The Legend of Korra, the critically acclaimed follow-up series to Avatar: The Last Airbender, rocked our world for 4 seasons before going off the air too soon in 2014. The Legend of Korra broke racial, sexual, and political ground like no other show, easily becoming one of the most progressive animated series ever. I'm Weebl with channel Frederator, and today we're revisiting the legendary element-bending tale. Are you a diehard fan, or just wondering what all the fuss is about? We've got something for everyone as we count down 107 facts you should know about The Legend of Korra. Let's get started. The Legend of Korra was an animated Nickelodeon show created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, 2 animation powerhouses who brought us 4 amazing seasons of more bending than we could ever need. Konietzko and DiMartino, or Brick as some fans like to call them, were initially worried about the project because fan mail demanded that they stop working on Korra in favour of an Avatar sequel. However, the duo presented the trailer for Korra at SDCC 2011, and of course, the crowd was wildly ecstatic. DiMartino was a director at Film Roman for 6 years, working on series like King of the Hill, Family Guy, and Mission Hill. He also animated and directed the short film Atomic Love, which is screened at Sundance, the Los Angeles Film Festival, and the Nicktoons Animation Festival. Konietzko began his career in animation as a character designer at Film Roman for Fox's primetime series Family Guy. He soon moved to assistant director on Mission Hill and King of the Hill, working besides DiMartino. He then became a storyboard artist and later art director for Invader Zim. The two brought on Joaquim Dos Santos and Ki-Hun Ryu, who worked on the original series as the heads of the production. All the top creative leads contributed artistically. Konietzko, Dos Santos, and Ryu share art direction duties. Originally, the show was to premiere in October 2011, but it was delayed until April 2012. It was also originally created as a miniseries, which Nick later expanded into a full show. You could say that Nickelodeon eventually realised how amazing this show would be. The aim of this series was to be a little more mature than Avatar, since Korra was older than Aang was in The Last Airbender. The idea for Korra's character stemmed from wanting a character whose personality was completely opposite from Aang's. She was inspired by one of Konietzko's sisters, who he says is pretty tough. He also says that female MMA fighters were an influence. In their 2014 interview with themarysue.com, Konietzko and DiMartino described their intention in designing Korra as a foil to Aang. Here, Aang wasn't initially comfortable with assuming the responsibility of being the Avatar. Korra wanted the responsibility. She reveled in it. She had to let go of her ego and become a more spiritually balanced being. In describing their idea for Korra to their artist and Dos Santos, Konietzko and DiMartino describe her as being a water tribe version of a snowboarder or an MMA fighter. The idea was to break conventions of what female superheroes are. She's tough, she's rugged. Konietzko says it was fun to play with the familiar motifs of water tribe costumes by giving Korra a more fitted 3/4 sleeve parka, as well as clashing her blue outfit with firebending gear when the audience first meets her as a teenager, both things we don't really see in Avatar. Konietzko describes the art direction process of Korra as wholly collaborative. For Korra's final design, Santos provided the bulk of the work. Ki-Hun Ryu added the spice, and Konietzko merely baked it all together. The name Korra was inspired by the owner of an Okono lodge who had a dog named Korra. You never know what you'll find at an Okono lodge. Even as a child, Korra is very self-assured and aggressive. Ryu wrote a version of the dialogue, "I am the Avatar, you gotta deal with it," in one of his early sketches of young Korra. The creators loved how perfectly it summed up her attitude and personality and incorporated it into the first episode. Unlike The Last Airbender, the creators wanted to make each book standalone with one main threat per book. However, everything Korra does and learns in one arc carries over to the next and ties into her overall spiritual path. Mako and Bolin came out of a desire to include a story about brothers in Korra, and also to illustrate how family and culture had become more mixed 70 years after the original series. The brothers were designed by Ki-Hun Ryu and live in a modern metropolis in the United Republic. According to the creators, Aang and Zuko founded the United Republic after the war as a place where the benders and non-benders from all 4 kingdoms could live together in harmony. At a Comic-Con panel in 2011, Konietzko said, "If you're wondering, we did name him after Mako, which is in honor of the Asian American acting legend and voice actor of Uncle Iroh. Bolin takes a lot of his personality and character design from the original character concept for Aang's earthbending master Toph, before Aaron Ehad suggested that the role of Toph should be changed to a girl. Bolin rescued Papu from a nasty pet store at the age of 14. They've been inseparable ever since." I mean, I'd do the same if I found a fire ferret. The idea of Naga was dreamt up by Konietzko and actually originated alongside Appa and Momo. Everyone loved the character, but never found a place in the original show for her. When they came up with Korra and started thinking about her animal companion, they remembered the old sketch of Naga. The revision process of Naga wound up taking inspiration from Konietzko's and DiMartino's dogs. Naga and Korra's backstory is that people typically feared polar bear dogs, but when Korra was a kid, she courageously befriended a lost pup and named her Naga. Konietzko is very critical of his abilities when it comes to drawing women, but he wanted to handle Asami's design single-handedly. He wanted her to have some Hollywood glamour, but also having some killer racing outfits in her wardrobe. Her design was somewhat inspired by Rita Hayworth. Asami Sato was originally going to be an Equalist spy who was using Mako to get close to Korra, but the team behind the show ended up liking her so much that they thought it was better to keep her on the old good guys side. Chief Beifong, leader of the Metal Bender Cops, is mostly inspired by Toph, but visually she was somewhat based on one of the producers, Han Young-ja, who worked at Studio Mir in the animation studio in Korea. Han Young-ja is also a longtime friend and colleague of Konietzko and DiMartino. Life is all about connections, guys. When her character was introduced at SDCC 2011 as Toph's daughter, the audience immediately started chanting, "Who's the daddy?" The creators pretended not to hear this question. "I don't know what you're yelling, but we have to keep moving," Konietzko said. If Asami is inspired by Rita Hayworth, then Lin's old Hollywood influence came from the harder-edged Marlene Dietrich, a tough and natural beauty. Lin gave the writers a good excuse to say things like, "diddly squat," which was always a plus. Milo was based off of Konietzko's friend and former professor's son, Milo, who was such a force of nature that he and Mike knew they had to base a character on him. It really took to heart, write what you know. Ryu really wanted to make Milo an ugly kid, but the show creators urged him to make Milo a little cuter. I imagine Milo is very appreciative of that. Hiroshi Sato was inspired by Theodore Roosevelt and Geita Goto, a Japanese industrialist. Production manager Benjamin Kaltenecker has the exact same nose as Ryu's design for Tenzin, which Ryu is pretty obsessed with drawing during meetings. Bit weird. The artists had trouble with Tenzin, more specifically, having problems keeping his nose consistent, which you would think would be easy since they could simply look at the production manager. Voice director Andrea Romano is a legend at her craft, with credits in the DC animated world, as well as on Teen Titans, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Animaniacs, and Pinky and the Brain. She also worked on the original Avatar series.
Hey everybody, taking a quick break from the facts to let you all know that this is your last chance to enter StashRiot.com's $1,000 giveaway. To enter, all you have to do is click the link in the description below and enter your email address at StashRiot.com for your chance to win $1,000 for all of your plushie and t-shirt needs. Contest rules apply. StashRiot.com is also offering free shipping throughout anywhere in the US, and if you're overseas, they're taking $5 off your order shipping. And if you're watching this video after April 30th, don't worry because StashRiot.com does a bunch of giveaways, so be sure to check back for your chance to win. And now let's get back to the facts.
Korra is voiced by Janet Varney, who also starred in Burning Love and Dinner and a Movie. She also hosts a podcast on the Nerdist network called The JV Club and has made appearances on At Midnight. When auditioning for the role, Varney said, "I don't let myself think too much about it being Last Airbender related because I'm a fan of the show and I didn't want to jinx it for myself by getting too excited or too worried about it." Varney's inspiration for voicing Korra was Jodie Foster and Christina Ricci. PJ Byrne, who voiced Bolin, is known for his roles in The Wolf of Wall Street, Horrible Bosses, and Final Destination 5. They made 5? Byrne was given a lot of freedom in his voicing since his character is mostly comic relief. He was allowed to ad-lib and his lines were either cut or kept. Mako's voice actor was David Faustino, famous for playing Bud Bundy on Married with Children. Faustino said he and Mako both don't understand women very well, and they have bonded for it. Asami's voice actor, Seychelle Gabriel, appeared in the live-action The Last Airbender movie as Princess Yu. Aang's son, Tenzin, is voiced by none other than J.K. Simmons, who is famous for his roles in Juno, Burn After Reading, and most recently Whiplash, for which he won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Aubrey Plaza, known for playing April on Parks and Recreation, voices Eska, Korra's cousin and Bolin's almost fiancée. Other animation credits for Miss Plaza include SpongeBob SquarePants and Monster University. Dante Brasco, a young swashbuckling hero and the youngest general in the United Forces history, is very close to his grandfather, Lord Zuko. To honour this relationship, they decided to use the same voice actor. Zahir is voiced by Henry Rollins. Rollins is also the voice for Benjamin Knox, or Bonk, in the 2000 animated film Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. Lynn's voice actor is Mindy Sterling, best known as Frau Farbissina in the Austin Powers franchise. Mindy is also a breast cancer survivor. Hiroshi Sato was voiced by Daniel Dae Kim, famous from Lost, and the voice of General Fong in The Last Airbender. You might also know him from Hawaii Five-0. 1, the first ever Avatar featured in Beginnings 1 and Beginnings 2, is voiced by Steven Yen. known for playing Glenn in The Walking Dead. The show's composers are Jeremy Zuckerman and Benjamin Wynn, also known as the Track Team. The two met at Cal Arts, where they both studied music and composed the music for Last Airbender. The three primary styles of fighting incorporated into Legend of Korra are traditional Chinese martial arts, mixed martial arts, and tricking, which is a style that uses flips and twists from gymnastics as well as breakdancing moves. The origin story for the first Avatar is something DiMartino and Konietzko kicked around for years on the original series. They knew they wanted a distinct art direction style for this mythic tale to help place it 10,000 years before Korra. The creative team drew inspiration from ancient and traditional East Asian ink wash paintings and woodblock prints for the environments, expanding the vision of the Avatar world, but also staying true to the building blocks of its visual influence. In an early version of the script, one was washed away down a waterfall before he found the air nomads, but they had to cut those scenes because the episode was too long. The Earth battlefield where one died is the same field Zuko passed through in Zuko Alone. Konietzko has described Republic City as a 1920s fictional Shanghai meets Manhattan, with coughing old-fashioned cars in a steampunk environment with floating iron blimps. The idea for pro bending, the spectator sport using benders in the series, was created before Korra was the Avatar. Part of the inspiration for pro bending was the Leatherhead era of American football. Not too bulky, but not completely streamlined. The pro bending arena was largely based on the Harmandir Sahib, the Golden Palace in Amritsar, India, and the Saltaire Pavilion on the Great Salt Lake from the late 1800s. Mako learned his lightning skills from his former boss, Lightning Bolt Zolt of the Triple Threat Triad, who also happened to be the first person to have his bending taken away by Amon. The scene with Mako learning pro bending from Toza and lightning techniques from Lightning Bolt Zolt were both cut out of the show to save time. During the time of the first series, bending lightning was incredibly rare, reserved for the inner circles of Fire Nation royalty and high-ranking military officers. Korra is the third female avatar mentioned in the series after Yang Chen and Kyoshi. For inspiration, mixed martial arts fight fan Konietzko referenced female fighter Gina Carano. Once we had the idea of a tough athletic girl, her personality took shape pretty quickly, he recalls. In the Avatar meta-series, Asami is the second person to be mistaken for the Avatar, the first being Sokka from The Last Airbender. Bolin's appearance in the last season was inspired by the Rocketeer. The most striking similarity is that slick leather jacket. Brian had the initial idea for Korrasami early on, like season 1 early, but he and the other writers assumed that he wouldn't fly on a kids' network in 2010. As time went on and Korra and Asami's relationship developed through the later seasons, Brian says that the idea became a more and more organic possibility. He cites Hayao Miyazaki's belief that the lead male and female shouldn't be expected to get together storybook style at the end of a story. When they were approaching the finale of the show, Konietzko finally asked himself, why can't we depict them together? In his words, no one ever explicitly said so. It was just another assumption based on a paradigm that marginalizes non-heterosexual people. If we want to see that paradigm evolved, we need to take a stand against it. Korra is the first canonically bisexual heroine in American children's animation. Speaking of couples, Varrick and Zhu Li weren't planned to end up as a couple, but that's where the story ended up, according to Brian Konietzko. Episode 8 of Korra's final season, Remembrances, was always meant to be a clip show. The budget cut was announced early enough that this season was planned out around it. Mike and Brian had planned out 12 episodes of plot. Reportedly, the alternative would have been to make a full 13 and let some of their production crew go early. The spirit who won Encounters is based off an ai, a lemur that is found in Madagascar. DiMartino found the animal while looking for odd-looking animals. He thinks Ai's eyes are very creepy. I'd agree that they're kind of creepy, but in a cute way. The Marching Spirit Parade in Beginnings Part 1 is a homage to Hayao Miyazaki, one of the greatest animation directors. Because the Nuktuk film was shot in black and white, the fact that the guards weren't wearing pants wasn't super evident, but they are in fact pantsless. When it comes to creating Water Tribe costuming and culture, Konietzko turns to a book about the making of the film Tana Yuat, The Fast Runner. Photos of beautiful Inuit parkas inspired Judge Hota's robe. The trees in the sacred forest were based on ancient bristlecones pines, some of the oldest organisms on Earth. Noatak/Amon accidentally has the same exact hairstyle as Korra. Despite how different they are at present, they came from similar cultural backgrounds. The uniforms for the metal-bending law enforcement officers of Republic City hark back to the traditional samurai armor blended with the military-style uniforms of New York City cops in the 1920s. The currency of Republic City is based off the Chinese yen, and Aang's face is on it. Underneath the Avatar Aang statue that looks out over Republic City is a museum containing many historical Avatar relics. kind of like the Lincoln Memorial. Because the character was so popular with fans, a statue of the cabbage merchant appears in Korra, commemorating his first stand in Republic City. Konietzko and DiMartino even came up with an elaborate backstory about how this lowly vendor worked tirelessly to create Cabbage Corp. In the first draft of the script, they wrote in news reports that explained how Lao Gang Lan and his father, the cabbage merchant, had a long history of disputes with Avatar Aang and a discrimination against benders. A gag idea that never made it was a rabid fangirl who would appear at Amon's rally and pay tribute to the foaming mouth guy from the original series. Ultimately, they decided the comedy undermined the creepiness of the rally, so they cut it. While working on book 1 of the series, Mike pitched the idea of an Avatar follow-up movie. The pitch was declined in favour of a second season of Korra, but the story was published in comic book form instead. Studio Mir, which began animating for book 2 episodes, did not finish because they had begun work animating the Boondocks. Eventually, they were asked to come back and reached a deal with the Japanese studio to work on the rest of the season. The CG Legend of Korra was handled by Technicolor's India studio. Michael and Brian wrote the first season by themselves. When Nickelodeon asked for more episodes, more writers were brought in. Animation director Yoo Jae-myung said the production of the series was suspended at one point because Nickelodeon execs still had an issue with the protagonist of the series being a girl. Michael and Brian had to change their minds before the series production was resumed. When shown to a test audience of kids, the boys of the group didn't care if the star was a girl and thought the show was just awesome. The decision to move Korra to a digital release came from the fact that the online presence and numbers were far higher than those on live television. By the time Book 2 rolled around, the numbers on digital streaming greatly outweighed the channel anyway. Nickelodeon brought Korra back to television halfway through Book 4, giving it a 9 PM slot on Friday nights on Nicktoons, but not on Nickelodeon. There was a lot of overlap in the production. The crew was having meetings about the beginnings of the final season when the second season wasn't even done yet. Several episodes of season 3 were leaked online before they aired. This was partly to blame for episodes getting lower ratings, and eventually the show was shown only online. Nickelodeon shortened the length of episodes during season 3 from 24 minutes to 22. A Legend of Korra comic featuring a young Korra was released on Free Comic Book Day in 2015. After Book 2 was complete, Nickelodeon asked the team to make 3 graphic shorts for their app. This ended up being a prequel to Korra, focusing on Mako and Bolin's life on the street before they became pro-benders. There's a free interactive book called The Legend of Korra Enhanced Experience available for download through iTunes. Among the many features offered, a concept art, an in-depth look at the characters, animatics, and storyboards from Book 1. After the show ended, a fan petition to have Netflix produce a new show in the Avatar universe gained 10,000 signatures. However, Nickelodeon still holds the right to the series. Having just come off over 10 years of bringing the Avatar verse to the small screen, both Konietzko and DiMartino have opted to close the door on it, at least in the medium of animation. After the Korra finale, Gallery Nucleus in Alhambra, California had an Avatar/Korra art show featuring both art created by artists for the series and by fans. This show featured an exclusive canon print by Brian Konietzko of Korra and Asami embracing. Several prints were made available, and the proceeds were donated to a suicide prevention hotline for LGBTQ youth. However, some of the Korra staff is already working together on a new project, which is being jokingly referred to as Korra 2.0, not because of any connection to the Avatarverse, but because of the shared creative experience of most, if not all, of the creative team. The series premiere of Legend of Korra drew over 4.5 million viewers. It was #1 in viewers on basic cable for a kids show and an animated series. Book 1, Air, drew an average of 3.8 million viewers per episode, making it the most viewed animated show in 2012. The premiere episodes of the second season only had 2.6 million viewers tune in, while the lowest rated episode of the first season had 2.9 million. This might have been because of the long hiatus between the two books or the change in time slot. Pixel Drip Gallery put together a Korra fan art show along with a short documentary about it. The show was lovingly called I'm the Art Show. Deal with it. IGN named the show Best TV Animated Series in 2012 and 2014. IGN's People's Choice Award for Best TV Animated Series in 2012, 2013 and 2014, and IGN's People's Choice Award for Best TV Series in 2014. It was nominated for several Annie Awards, winning Outstanding Casting for an Animated Series or Special in 2013, Production Design in an Animated TV/Broadcast Production in 2014, and Outstanding Achievement Storyboarding in an Animated TV/Broadcasting Production in 2015. The show is very well received, as it was nominated for several Daytime Emmy Awards, winning an award for Outstanding Casting for an Animated Series or Special in 2013, won 17 BTVA Awards, and won a Gracie Allen Award for Outstanding Animated Program. On playing Korra, Janie Varney said, "As a girl, as a woman, it's frankly really gratifying for me to see this new series catapult this incredibly cool female character into the minds of children, and girls in particular, who I hope will feel empowered by her and inspired by her. Everyone is, Janet. You the best. Thanks for watching 107 Facts You Should Know About Legend of Korra. Which character is your favourite? Sound off in the comments. And if you liked this video, be sure to check out some of our other 107 Facts videos by clicking the annotations or links in the description. We have new videos dropping every week, so let us know which cartoon or anime you want us to cover next. And if you like getting more from your cartoons, subscribe to channel Frederator, because remember, Frederator loves you.
Matt loves Frederator. 107 Facts on Arthur. You know the aardvark.